Hello and welcome to an all new Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid. And today we have two special guests, people I've known for quite a while. They are retailers. So if you're used to watching Deep Cuts, we have lots of cigar makers on the show and entrepreneurs of that sort. But retail is a very important part of any business, so any field. So we're going to get a very interesting perspective, I believe, from the two guests that we have on today. So our guests are Ian and Rebecca Harvey, and they are the operators of Smokers Abbey in Austin. So let me bring them on. It was a bit of a tongue twister. I was like, it was getting that whole phrase in there. So how are you all?
We're good. How are you?
I'm doing well. As I was, and we were kind of talking about this a few moments ago before we went live, but as I put together this podcast and show, I wanted it to be a little bit different in that I wanted to get some retailers involved in the show because I think retail is such an important part of this specific, when we're talking about like the premium cigar industry, retailers are so, like I said, so very important. And we don't hear from them a lot. and it's a completely different kind of relationship. And I see you all as kind of being on the front lines of this whole business because the manufacturers make this product, but it's such a small industry that lots of the manufacturers don't even have like a large sales force. So they can't always be at your store every week. Sometimes they can't even be there every month. And you're kind of left on your own to kind of sell these products that you bring in. And I know that that's probably a lot more challenging than people think because especially with the cigar world, there's so many choices out there and they all kind of look the same. And if you read the reviews, they're all kind of the same, like you have the same experience. So I definitely want to get your story and get your perspective on how this all is working for you. So like I said, thank you for coming on today and sharing your insight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're excited to be.
Yeah, it was funny because like the last time I saw you two was a couple weeks ago in Vegas. We're all at the PCA trade show, and I think that's where this kind of idea came from because you go to these trade shows, and and you hear it's all about the retail, it's all about the retailer, and then it kind of makes you wonder though, what happens after the show is over? Like, does that kind of same mentality kind of hold up, or is it just kind of like until that trade show season where you kind of pop up? And I know that there's lots of manufacturers that are probably better at it than others, but I just really think that getting your side of the story and what it's like to be a retailer today, especially I would say AC, as I call it, after COVID, would definitely be interesting. So to begin with, though, could you just tell us a little bit about you two, how you all kind of came into the whole retail world and how you came into Smokers Abbey?
Well, we've been married for quite some time, and we've worked together several times throughout our careers. And we had gotten to a place about 6 years ago where two of the careers that we had been really putting a lot of ourselves into had kind of come to an end. My time in the ministry and also our time in kind of the music industry. And so we were looking at what our next steps were, and pretty much the whole time during our marriage, I had been really enjoying cigars and really cut my teeth when I was in college, like being around cigar lounges and stuff like that. And Rebecca had always really been into pipes. And so we had kind of had this thought of, in the area that we were in, we didn't really have anything like what we ended up building. An atmosphere that was the idea was to be welcoming and kind of inclusive, but also have a lot of heart and ingenuity behind it. And in the area that we were, like I said, in the area that we were in, we just didn't have that. So we started kind of the process from there. A friend that I had known through the music world and the ministry world, we knew had opened up a cigar lounge in Nashville many years prior to us even talking about this. And we reached out to him, or I reached out to him, Josh Stump, and just originally called to ask him advice on how to, own a cigar shop, how you even really get started on that. We ended up talking for probably about 45 minutes to an hour about our vision for like the atmosphere and for what we wanted to accomplish. And at the end of it, he just kind of said, like, look, it sounds like we should do something together, because it sounds like your vision is very in line with ours. And so what we ended up doing is kind of creating this, we're the second Smokers Abbey, but we kind of created more of a partnership, I'd say, rather than what most people would traditionally think of as like a franchise or a second location or something like that, where we share a lot of ideals and a lot of processes, but we definitely run our own shops our own way. That was 5 years ago. And in that time, we've really, I think all of the shops, there are 3 of them now, have really evolved into their own. They kind of meet the culture of where they are. We're very Austin, and we can't be anything we're not. Josh and Nate's shop is very Nashville. Like, if you walk in that place, it is like Nashville. And then Sean Payne's shop in Memphis is very reflective of the Memphis culture too. So I think, so that's how we got started, and then it kind of evolved from there.
So you kind of answered some of the questions of how did you, when you were looking to open the store, you had somebody you could turn to for advice, but I'm sure that there was still a lot more stuff that you had to kind of learn on your own. Like, that person couldn't just take all of their years of experience and just like say, here you go, like, and you just like absorb it automatically. You go, oh, okay. Like, what was that, those early days? Like, what were some of the issues that you kind of had to deal with that maybe you weren't prepared for?
Well, there were, it was a multiple thing. What the first is that what a lot of people don't understand about our industry, maybe from a customer point of view, or if you're looking to get into doing this, is that you can talk to 100 people that are awesome retailers, but different states have different processes for doing all of this stuff. Different taxes, different licenses that you have to carry. And so that was one of the first like hard things, because Josh and them really couldn't advise us on that, because they had no, they didn't have any experience with the Texas Comptroller. So we now have a lot of experience with the Texas Comptroller, because we've had to engage with them quite a bit. Second is that I think one of the biggest fallacies of our industry as far as education is that we do not talk enough about, and we'll probably go over this in a little while too, but we do not talk enough about ventilation. We talk a lot about product. We talk a lot about sales. We talk a lot about running them hot deals, but we do not talk enough about how to balance the air in your cigar lounge, and how to create an environment that's not going to encroach on your neighbors if you have neighbors. So that was something we faced very early on, which is ultimately why we are not in our original space. And then one of the other things that wasn't really covered in the book, whatever book was sent to us, was
It was a notebook.
When we opened Smokers Abbey in the Austin, nobody knew who we were. It's not like I had been a lounge rat. Like I said, there really wasn't a place for me to go. So it's not like I had some bevy of people that I just pulled from other lounges.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're kind of coming into it cold, there are a lot of things. What's interesting about customers is that they expect you to be every place they've ever been, and have, be it the way that you treat them or the rules or the type of stuff that you carry. We just weren't really prepared for kind of some of the weird animosity we got when we first opened. And so we just had to kind of work through some of those things, and some of those things just took time and us pushing, and just continuing to grow and adapt. Obviously, the comptroller thing, we had to just adapt by doing what they told us to. But but yeah, I mean, I think those first two things though are if you're looking to get into this, know what your state is going to require of you. And the crazy thing is, they won't tell you, but you'll find out when you do something wrong. And ventilation, I think we need to talk more at the trade show and in any meetings that are happening with retailers, because I've talked to over 100 retailers now, and nobody's happy with their ventilation, like 100%. Like nobody's like, oh yeah, we got it on lock. Like maybe Romacraft, because their place is beautiful, but nobody's really happy. So we need to start talking about it more and like how to fix that problem. But yeah,
I think the only other thing I'd add is that when we first got started, I think the Small Business Administration likes to make themselves look like they're here to help you, and they're here to, like, we're going to help you start a business. Not true. So it's like, you fill out all the paperwork and all that stuff, and they're like, you have no experience running a business. I'm like, no, that's why I need your help. They're like, well, where's all the money that you're bringing into the business? I'm like, once again, that's why I need your help. And so it took us, quite honestly, until COVID to kind of like, COVID was a really nice reset and like gave us some time to get everything organized and like going in a good direction. But it took us almost 5 years to kind of get the financial aspect of opening a brand new business from nothing up and going and organized. So
now on the subject of the ventilation, because I've heard this a lot from retailers when I interview them, and they always hype up, the ventilation system. But I know probably as a customer, you don't, like I said, when you walk into it, like when I walk into a store, I'm just thinking about what I'm there to buy or what the product, and not so much, probably the ventilation. But especially in a cigar store kind of situation with a lounge where people can sit and they can smoke their product there, which is very important because, providing people with a space where they can actually enjoy the product is like, key to the retail space, especially in the tobacco industry.
Right.
But you don't hear about the ventilation part a lot as a consumer. And maybe that's why the industry is kind of like shaky in that area, because the whole focus is on the product. Like give the customer something new that they can come in and buy. Oh, we're releasing this. It's going to be limited edition. It's going to drive people in. But the ventilation part, like you said, is like if you walk into a cigar store with very poor ventilation and people are smoking in there, like you notice, and it affects your mentality. Like you might love the retailer, but you might say, oh, like, I can't go in there early on, like before I go to work, because I'm going to come out smelling like an ashtray, or, I need to plan my day around when I'm going to be in here so I can take a shower afterwards and all this other stuff. So just for those people who might be, like I said, might just be, simple consumers who might not know what you talk about when you say ventilation, can you explain to them kind of in a simple way what the ventilation situation is for a cigar lounge? Like, what are you kind of looking for? What do you have to have in place in order to kind of, or is it even, are you even able to answer that?
Well, okay. So when you're building a place, right, and you don't have any, like we built things differently when we did our second thing like this. Mm-hmm. This is different. But when we were building our first place, the only thing you can go off is what you're cool with, like what you would want, right? I've been in bands I fronted hardcore bands for like 12 years. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of concerts. I don't care about smoky rooms. I've never cared about them. Like, I like it. Like like a concert doesn't smell like a concert to me unless there's way too many people smoking cigarettes, So smoky rooms have never bothered me. And I've always had the mentality of, if you walk into a coffee shop and it doesn't smell like coffee, you should leave, because they're not doing well, or they're not making, or So that was my mentality, and it still is a little bit of my mentality. But basically, the ventilation idea is, it's twofold, or it's just one step for most people. And the first is that we're producing smoke when we light these things up. We're burning leaves, and we in a contained room, you need to somehow get that smoke out. Otherwise, you create a fog machine in your shop. So the easiest way to do that is to put vent fans in and have them draw the smoke out and put it out the roof or the wall or whatever. However you do that. The second step is, and that sounds really simple, but that's not as simple as it sounds. The second step is actually cleaning the air, filtration, and I think the filtration part is where a lot of retailers, we kind of divide a little bit, because like I said, I don't mind that my place smells like cigars, because we're a cigar lounge and that's kind of what it's supposed to smell like. But there are some places that are very high end and want to allow you to smoke a cigar in their place, and you to never know that anybody else was smoking a cigar there. So they employ a lot of filtration systems, which we have, but we don't use very often because we often don't need them. That actually scrub the air and try to remove some of the smoke particulates from the air, so that it either doesn't smell as bad or that the air is actually cleaner. And I think, kind of depending on the person, it all is a personal preference. Like, some guys are like, oh my gosh, my eyes are burning. And I'm like, bro, you're the only one smoking in here. And then there are other people that will sit in the midst of like 9 people, and they're like, man, it looks really clear in here. Like, it's kind of a thing. But I think the basic idea is that you want to be able to you want to be able to kind of see somewhat clearly through your space at any given time, and create a space where people are not just choking on other people's cigar smoke. And the biggest issue with that is that there is no like base level, one size fits all ventilation filtration situation, because every shop is shaped differently. They're bigger, they're smaller, they're rectangle, they're square, they have windows, they don't have windows, that type of thing. So it's kind of it's one of those things that you really have to install what you think you need at the beginning, and then kind of figure it out as you go, which means that you have a lot of people going, oh man, it's really smoky in here for a while. And then eventually you figure it out. I don't know if we ever figured it out at the last shop. We're still working on it here, but it's an issue, and it's what will get you kicked out of a strip center.
Yes.
That's like the number one thing that any neighbor for a cigar shop, and we're easy to pick on, will complain about. And so your ventilation and filtration system is key if you want to get along with your neighbors and not get evicted. Which that story is very common.
But I'm sure that too, like the ventilation system that, when I speak to retailers, it's a major investment. It's not something cheap, and that takes away from everything else you can do. It's just like it's like a Sophie's choice. It's like, do you spend
Right.
money on a great ventilation system? And if you do, then it's like, then you have less money to spend on product and everything else you need for the store. So it's just like, how do you choose? But it's sometimes, like you said, depending if you are in a, situation where you're leasing a space, you probably don't have a choice really to choose. Like, you have to figure that part out.
In our situation with building this shop, and we didn't know it last time, so we didn't do it, but this time it was the humidor. Obviously, that's where we make our money. That's where the majority of our money went. And then ventilation and AC was the very next. Like, those were the two priorities. If we can get those two things right, everything else is going to be great. But those two things are the things that have to be at the top quality. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's everything in here is from a thrift store.
Or
as far as like when you're sitting in here, it's all secondhand stuff. But that humidor and that ventilation system, we worked really hard on that. And and the thing is like, if you have any retailers watching this right now, if you're a retailer, you're watching this right now, and let's say there's like 20 of you, and I say, and I'm not telling you the actual number, but if I say I spent $10,000 on my ventilation system, there's probably at least 3 of them that are go, that's chump change on what I spent. And so, and if you're watching this as a consumer and you're wondering, well, why do I have to pay $9 for a cigar? Well, part of that money is going towards that $10,000 that we had, $10 to $20 to $80,000 that we had to spend on the ventilation, because stuff's wild, man. Like, it's super expensive.
I talked to a retailer this past weekend that we were comparing stories on. He had just recently finished a build out, and he said that he spent $200,000 on his ventilation system.
Right.
I'm like,
wow. You're like, yeah.
Like that. So that's a thing.
If you're not keeping track at home, that's a lot of money. That's a house.
That's a house.
That's just for the ventilation.
So I mean, it's that type of thing. So
yeah. Going off of you were talking about to the consumers just a minute ago, and when you made a comment a couple of minutes ago about how when you were starting out, some of the customers coming in and expecting you to kind of be everywhere at once, and maybe having a little bit of animosity toward you when when you weren't able to be everywhere at once, or maybe everything to them that they needed to be. Could you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think that, when I heard like, animostic customers, it makes you pause, because, you always think, nice customers and, people getting along. But, and especially in the cigar industry, nobody ever really talks about, when you hear about bad customers, you just think about customers that come in and try to steal from you. But, could you just elaborate a little bit on that? Because I think that's kind of obviously a little bit interesting to me. Yeah.
So I will say at the beginning that, like, we have some awesome customers, and we have some awesome people that we've built a really good culture with over the last 5 years. By no means am I saying, hey, somebody's calling the shop before we're open. By no means am I saying that it's been a 100% across the board thing. But especially at the beginning when we opened up, the main places that were in town that a lot of cigar smokers were coming to check us out from were places that had been established for, one of them had been there for over 20 years. The other had been there for over 10. And so some of the practices and the habits and the routines that they had gotten used to with those other 2 places, they just assumed that every place that they went moving forward would do those types of things. An example would be, like, I had a guy beat me up one time, not beat me up, but like verbally, because I wanted to sell him a soda and not give it to him. He's like, well, I bought a cigar. And I said, yeah. And now you're buying a soda. And he said, no, at the other place, they just give me the sodas. And so I think that something to understand is that it is great that there are some businesses out there that can give away things that we rely on to make money. And that's amazing. I'm glad that they're doing well enough that they can do that. But also understand that as when you're a consumer and you're walking into a new place, kind of view it as you're walking into somebody's home.
Mhm.
And there are some basic rules that you follow when you walk into somebody's home, but there are also, everybody's home is a little different. You know, this is completely metaphorical, but in some homes you take off your shoes at the door, and in some homes you leave them on the whole time. And in some shops, you know, they let you bring in your own cigars, and then some shops like us do not. So everything's a little different. So as a consumer, come in, relax your shoulders, breathe a little bit, and just try to understand what's going on in that particular shop, because the reality is that they have regulars for a reason. Is that there's something good happening in that place, and they like it for some reason. So go try to figure that out rather than try to figure out why you don't like how a shop is doing what they're doing, because we're very different than a lot of the places in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. There's different atmospheres that are created in these places, and different cultures and different groups of people. But when I go into another shop, I'm not trying to retrofit what I do into somebody else's business model. Like it's just different, man. Like come in, chill. This is supposed to be relaxing. Let's not greet each other with rage and anger, because I wouldn't give you a soda. Yeah.
You know, one of the areas of the industry that I'm always curious about is the relationship between the retailer and the manufacturer. Because like I said, you can go to a trade show and you can see how they interact and stuff. But to me, that's a bubble, because I'm sure that once you're back in your own store and there's not a trade show going on, and you know you made your purchase, maybe that relationship is a little bit different. So for you all, like when you're looking to bring in a new product or a new company, what is that decision process like? Like what makes you say, you know, yeah, let's give you a shot, and you know, as opposed to like maybe you're all not a good fit for our, you know, our store and our customers.
Right. So on well, you covered a lot of things there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to like wrap my head around like how I start this. So first and foremost for us, anything that we bring in, your product has to be good. That's the baseline. I don't care how cool of a guy you are. I don't care how long you've been in the industry. Your product has to be good. Sorry, we're having a delivery driving up right as I started to answer this question. But I think that's a key thing, is like too many people get so wrapped up in, and I'll come back to relationships in a minute, but relationships do have to be good. And we love having good communication and relationship with people that we work with. But the core of it is that the product has to be good. I have to know that people will respond to it. I have to know that you care about it, and that it does something different. And we work a little differently. I'm going to pause for just a sec, if that's okay, while they deliver, so that we don't have this weird, like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, like moment. I remember where I was, though. I think good product. I'll just keep looking at these two cigars and go, good product. Okay, cool. Wanderlust and Corto. He's taking a minute. He's got 6 boxes for Placencia. We just got them, so I have no idea how we got 6 boxes of them.
This is the fun part about doing live shows, is that you get to see the interactions and the real stuff happening. So
so this can be another like B-roll thing. So we move into this new shop and we cannot get UPS to deliver after we open. So we've been having to show up like 2 hours before we open every day.
Oh man.
And so that we can get our deliveries. I will keep talking. So anyway, Product has to be good. But we work a little differently in that our shop like solely focuses on small batch boutique brands. And one of the advantages that we have with doing that is that we are very much directly in contact with the owners and the people that are actually making the cigars, because it's a smaller team. And so that's a luxury that we have because of the type of brands that we focus on. And those relationships deepen because Rebecca and I are very much like artist community type people. Like I said, I was a musician. Rebecca's been a photographer and artist for ever. And so when we meet people that are like kindred spirits, like we understand those people and we love building relationships with those people. Well, those same type of people exist in the cigar industry, and James Brown and Angela and Sebastian Island and Kyle from Warped, and I mean the list goes on, and you know, Mike and Skip from Romacraft. They kind of remind us of all of our artist friends that we used to hang out with, except they're wearing more clothes and they have less facial tattoos. And so we build those relationships with those people as people, but then we also respect their art. And we're able to participate in that art by championing them in this room behind me. And so I think relationships are incredibly important, but you have to know that things are going to be different with certain companies. So, you know, we have a few companies in there that having a relationship with the owner is not necessarily a huge priority. As long as we have a good relationship with our rep and people are enjoying the product. Like I said, product has to be good, number one. But for the most part, we look for, can we go past this? We sell your tobacco, and can we get a little bit more into friendship and also community with them, so that they can feel comfortable to come in and have that with our customers as well, and that there's more behind the cigar than just I wanted to make a rad smoke, you know.
Right.
But like I said at the beginning, and I'll keep saying it again, they can be the nicest people in the world. And I used to run into this in the band world a lot of nice guys in really, really bad bands, right? Like, how was our set? It was okay. And I've had that experience in the cigar community where there have been guys that I have really, really liked as people, but product's just not there for me. So we pass on the product, we focus on the relationship.
Now, obviously, I would think to figure out whether a product is good or bad, you have to actually try that product, correct? Like as a retailer, I know for some reason on like between the manufacturer, maybe the media, like there's a strong relationship between ratings and you know, we'll send you product if you give us a rating, and right. You know, and we, you know, they aim for a 91, 92, whatever. Right. That's what they kind of want. And they think, I guess the mentality is that rating will pass down to the people, that media person's followers. You know, it'll create this demand. They'll run into the retailers. I want this 93 cigar. How much do ratings like that matter to you as a retailer versus like I said, you trying it and saying, this is something that, you know, I feel is going to be a better fit for our customer or not?
I think with any rating, be it Cigar Aficionado, Half Wheel, Cigar Dojo, whatever, look for I knew that was going to happen. Look for, oh, hold on. Just one Placencia box? Just one. Okay, that makes more sense. Big box, but makes more sense that it's one. I was like, how much did I order at the trade show? When you're looking at reviews, if you're a retailer or a consumer, look for a pattern of behavior. Because if there is a reviewer who does not like high-powered, full-bodied cigars, it does not matter if you give him the best one on the market. He will still give it a meh rating over that same company's lightest, chillest, smoothest cigar. He'll give that one like a 93, and then he'll give the other one like an 80, when really, if you were being fair, the two should have been flipped. So look for bylines. So for me, I guess I look for at ratings for cigars for this agricultural based handmade product. I look at it as one person opinion, and I would rather see a larger consensus. And then for me, I try everything. So I wholeheartedly have disagreed with a lot of reviews that have come out over the last few years of some of the stuff that's in our humidor. And I have wholeheartedly been surprised about some of the stuff that has gotten super high ratings, because there's been stuff that I was like, yeah, that was good, but I mean, that was a lot better. So I think that if you're a retailer, you should be trying everything that's in your humidor. You should have smoked. It surprises people when I tell them that, like, I have smoked everything in this humidor. They're like, oh, well, just the actual. I was like, no, every size. Like, I am not going to be the guy that goes like, that's not my jam. Like, why would I sell it if I don't know anything about it? Right. So I think that as a retailer, you are the gatekeeper to an amazing experience. And that if you have no idea what that experience is, then you're doing your customers a disservice. So, yeah.
In terms of how I mean, this is like a basic question, but in terms of how you actually purchase product, as consumers, we are thinking about, like, if there's a book that comes out that I want to buy, I have the option of going into a physical brick and mortar store, or I can just go online to their stores, and I have like a brevity of choices that I can choose from. And I'm okay sometimes, buying it, online from Target if I don't feel like going to Target, having it ordered or whatever. But what is that like for a retailer? Like, do you all order stuff like online? Like, or do you like, I know in the olden days of the industry, I don't know if it's still like this, but people would make catalogs and they would send it to the retailers. People make sales sheets, they will send it to them. They'll do the transaction over the phone. They would do call centers. So there are so many different things. But what is it like today? Like, how do you all actually like buy these products? Like, how much human interaction, I guess I'm asking, is still in the process?
Because of the cigars that we carry, all of ours is human interaction, unless I need to have it in writing. I do it all over email. Some is text messaging. Some is calling directly to the warehouse manager, something like that. For the brands that we carry, we don't have any online ordering. There's no like mega person that I talk to. I talk to the same person every time I need to place an order. It's either our rep, it's the owner of the company, or it's their distributor, which I usually deal with warehouse managers. So,
and I'll say that as far as like new products or new companies, and I'll go on the record as saying this, and I don't know if this is necessarily a consensus throughout all retailers, but I do know that I feel this way, and I've talked to other few people that feel this way. If there's a manufacturer watching, we never want to find out about your new release through a press release. We want to know about it first, because here's the reality. Yeah, it's great to send out to try to get the word out about your product to like Half Wheel and Cigar Aficionado and all the thousands of blogs that are out there. But the moment that a customer reads that article, you know who they call or they talk to?
The retailer.
And I have no idea what the product is, because sometimes I haven't read every blog that's out there that morning because I'm trying to get my kid to school. or I don't know what it is because I was not given an opportunity to understand what the cigar was. So I think a lot of retailers would love to be the first line of defense as far as information goes. And a lot of our companies are very good about that. And I'm not saying that it's like I'll give Warped a little bit of praise just because it's right off the top of my head. They have a new cigar coming out, Devil's Hand.
Yeah.
We got an email about it as a retailer, laying out exactly what it was, what the box count was, how much it cost, what the blend makeup was, what he was going for with it, story behind it, artwork, everything. We read that article. We went, cool. And about 6 hours later is when it hit the news cycle. That gave us the opportunity for when we have a Warped fan that wants to know what this new hotness that Kyle's coming out with is all about. Then I have some information to give him, even though I haven't tried it yet. And if all possible, we love to try things before they come in, because that's where the trade show really is a big tool for us, because we truly get to try stuff before the market gets it. And that is a very, very big tool. I'll tell you what, like that stuff that Bellotto is coming out with, that stuff is fire. And I wasn't sure what it was going to be because we loved La Barba. And I was like, well, okay, so he's doing a thing off La Barba. No, this is a whole different realm. And I get to tell people that, and I get to hype that up a little bit before it comes in, because it's not in yet. But that stuff's got to be nuts. And I know that as a retailer, and that is a valuable tool for us to know things before the rest of the market does, because ultimately we're going to be the hands that give it to people. You know what I mean? So.
And for that reason, we're very protective of our customers and what we give them. We only bring in new brands twice a year. We only bring in new brands at PCA and TPE. That's it. If that.
Yeah.
So we'll get it at one trade show. We'll smoke it for a while. We have some people here that we give it to. They smoke it for a while. And then we make a decision at the next trade show if we're still interested. Then we'll look at bringing them in at that point. But there's, like 6-8 months between the two trade shows. I mean, the process, reps coming in and sitting down and saying, here, try my cigar. Okay, do you want to bring in an order? My answer is always going to be no. We never bring in anything on the spot because we have to give it time. We have to let people try it. We have to know that we can put our full weight behind the company and we can support them. We watch their social media. We watch how they interact with customers. There's a whole package that goes along with the cigars that get to come into our humidor.
One of our most successful brands that we've ever brought in, it took us 2 years to bring them in.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Sebastian and Eileen, the Cavalier, like we went back and forth on that for a while. And then I finally was able to visualize how we would be able to sell that and like the story behind it and the person and all that stuff. And then we brought it in. It was our fastest growing brand we've ever brought in from the beginning. Now we have brands that sell more, but it took long periods of time to get them there. But I mean, Cavalier was like instantaneous.
We've been looking at Placencia for 3 years.
Yeah, and they're not a new brand. They don't need our little shop, no. But we still. But
that's the process that it's gone through. We can't just bring in a cigar brand. Well, here, Dapper's a good example. I love La Madrina, like one of my favorite cigars. But I brought it to him and I was like, well, I like this cigar. He goes, I cannot bring an entire cigar brand because you like one cigar. We can't just put one. If they have a whole slew of cigars, you can't just bring in one box of one cigar and be like, look, we have a brand. Like, that's not how it works. You have to fully display the whole catalog.
So we tried everything.
So we tried everything for a very long time. And then 2 years ago at PCA, we finally placed an order with Ian. And it's gone great, but it takes some time. So it takes some time to grow.
I definitely think that's
a very frustrating process for a lot of reps.
Oh yeah, reps get really, really frustrated with us.
No, but I think like that's good to hear because, like I said, there's always this assumption, just like retailers just have this abundant space and this money, like you said, throughout the year to just buy stuff. And it's like, as I've talked to more retailers over the years, it's kind of like, that's not the case. But sometimes when I'm speaking to other manufacturers, some of them like really think like, like, well, we could just, we're going to sell throughout the year and the whole thing about the press releases, because it's nice to hear that you're kind of frustrated with the press release handling too, because sometimes I am as well, because it's not really like a well executed plan, because it's like everybody gets the same press release at one time, and then like 24 hours there's all this excitement behind it, and then the next day you're like, wait, there was something like new yesterday, and like, oh yeah, and then you get another press release 6 months later saying, okay, it's finally ready to ship, and you're like, as a media person, you're just like, well, who cares if it's getting ready to ship now? It's like, that's not, but the fact that they're not coming to you first with that information, because like you said, Ian, like you're having to be the ones to sell this stuff. So it makes sense if one of your consumers comes in and they're following these different media sites and they go, wow, like, XYZ cigar brand just announced their new stuff. Are you all going to bring it? And you're like, I have stuff to do today. I haven't had time to like, read emails or follow, sit down for an hour and scroll through stuff. Like, I don't know. And that probably makes you mad a little bit that you're like, they're going to expect me to buy it, and yet they didn't do the courtesy of helping me understand what this thing is. And it's just a courtesy thing. It's just like, hold on for like an hour or two, or send it out a day before, give you time to kind of get, your idea. And I say also like, have a sample ready to send to the retailer to try, so that because reading about it, one of the things that I always complain about on deep cuts, which people are probably tired of now, is like, the ratings and stuff, because ratings for me is like based on one person's palate. So one person can smoke a cigar and say, this has like notes of cedar and almond and stuff like that, and then you smoke it and you're like, I have no idea where that's come from. And so it's all subjective, but you probably trust your retailer or whoever you're going to buy it from to know, especially in this cigar industry, you would trust your tobacconist to know what they're talking about, and you've purchased things from them before. That relationship is there. The consumer doesn't always have a relationship with the brand owner to know. They might like it, like I said, personality wise, but it's just crazy to hear that you all have to struggle with just, that communication part, which we've always said is the issue in the industry, is communication.
Well, we have a lot. I mean, our shop is based around the cigar nerd side of the industry. Like all of our people, like, I didn't realize it was a weird thing that every customer wants to know the blend makeup of everything that they're smoking. But we have some pretty nerdy customers, which is great because I'm kind of nerdy about it too. So we get to jam on things. But because they're nerdy, they pay attention. And because they pay attention, you can't just be like, yeah, it's great. Or, yeah, it's coming. Like, you have to give them a little bit more than that, because they require a little bit more than just like, hey, just smoke it. Because when you're nerdy about something, you want to know all the nuts and bolts.
We won't give them a date of when it's going to show up either. Like,
we stopped doing that.
It comes and we let it sit for a couple of days. We do what we need to with it, and then it eventually rolls out into the shop, and then it rolls out online. We stopped giving people dates of when things were going to get delivered a long time ago. That just was horrible. That backfired every time we did it. It was awful. So That's great that they say it's shipping. That does not mean we're getting it next week. So they have their way. Manufacturers have their way. Distributors have their way. We get it when we get it. We'll let you know when it's here. So.
Yeah, and I know that, I follow you all on Instagram, and I know that when you follow you all will announce like new in the store, here's a sample pack. And I look for that kind of stuff, because sometimes I'm like, oh, it's like they have a cool sample pack put together, and or this new cigar that I know is kind of like in the boutique kind of, area, that I was like, oh, and I've ordered a couple of things from you all. So I know that's like, I think that's a good use, like, or good statement to make, that, like you said, sometimes when the factor says it's shipping, that doesn't mean like the next day, like it's like, it's not like Nintendo or something. Like when they say something's going to be available on Friday, it's been shipped, it's ready to go at Target or Best Buy, like it's there. Like this is a completely different industry and different mechanics.
I think a lot of customers don't understand the process of what it takes to get it from the factory through customs. Like the process, it's got to go from being rolled to sitting to being boxed up in the factory to being marked to finding out if there's room on the cargo plane to get it on the plane. Like, did they get their slot that they wanted, that they bought? And then it's got to get to the States. It's got to go through customs. Well, did customs jack it up? Did customs lose it? Did it sit on whatever for a while? And then it's got to go to the distributor or whatever. Well, they have to count it. They have to enter it in. And then they have to divide it up. They have to put it in our boxes so that it can actually come to us. Then it's got a week to get to us because everything takes a week in Texas. So, and then we actually have to unbox it. We have to inventory it. We have to take pictures. We have to do all of our things. And then it can be on the shelf. Like It's sometimes a 2-week process. Sometimes it's a month. We have no control over that. And then we have hurricanes that hit us and terrible weather and things get lost and things get delayed. And yeah, no, I'm not giving a date anymore. Ever again. Never again.
You all were mentioning, my last question about product is you were mentioning how you have cigar nerds in your store who want to know like that, the breakdown of the blend, like what's in the blend. But how important is it for these products to have a story, or the brands to have a story, and for you to know it? Like, is that important? Is it like a balance between the two? Do you find more customers coming in saying, I know, like I said, it's different for each store. So do you have more customers coming in saying that they are looking for Mexican San Andreas wrapper type cigar, or a cigar that has like these flavor notes? Or are they kind of trusting you to kind of tell them like maybe like a little story behind like the Cavalier brand?
I think one of the things that I've learned as a tobacconist over the last 5 years is that you have to know what audience you're talking to. Mm-hmm. There are some guys that just want a cigar, and ladies, they just want a cigar. They just want something in a profile, light, creamy, heavy, peppery, that type of stuff. They don't want to know much about it. And then there's another large portion of people that want to know a little bit more about it, specifically what it is. And then there's another section that builds on that and kind of love to hear why Nick Melillo should be a household name. What makes the relationship between Aganorsa and Illusione and Warped so interesting. Mm-hmm. Is that these three cigar makers essentially take the same tobaccos and have completely different, results in the cigars that they make. And there are people that want to know those things. And so I think that if I could give advice from my small amount of experience, is that be prepared for the last group and know when to pare it down for the first group. Mm-hmm. Because some people are just coming in and get a cigar and leave. They're like, hey man, I didn't want to have a 20-minute conversation about this one cigar. And I'm like, well, I did.
Some of our customers like the story behind things. Oh, yeah. So like we are carrying the Cypher from Jeremy Castagli, and it has an incredible story that I still have to learn completely all in order, but it's going to be a cool story to be able to tell, and it's going to make the cigar sell that much better because there's such a strong history and story behind it. Mm-hmm. Same with Warped. All of Warped cigars, all Kyle's stuff has stories behind it. So it's kind of like, oh, it's your favorite cigar. Here's a little story about why Kyle made it. Like once you get them bought into it, it kind of gives them a little bit more to sink their teeth into.
And then some cigars take on a story for themselves. Right. We Absolutely. Have Memento Mori from Black Label Trading Company has become an unfortunate, not celebratory cigar, but a cigar that we smoke with some people in our shop that unfortunately are going through some health issues.
Yep.
And stuff that's not cigar related, but cancer and other things. And that cigar takes on a whole story for itself when you're understanding the name Memento Mori, that loosely translates into live.
Live
You're
your
not
best
promised.
life.
You're not promised tomorrow, type thing.
Live your best life.
Yeah. So I think the stories behind these cigars are important, and depending on the customer, you being able to intelligently and passionately communicate that story is incredibly important.
And it's even better when the owner of the company can come in and talk to the people about they can tell the actual story, because the author of it's always better than a copy of it. We can try, but we're going to miss the details. When James comes in and is able to tell the story of Memento Mori and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't talk much during events.
Yeah.
I just let the
principals do it. Yeah. So, because they're going to tell it better than we can. They're going to rep their cigars better than we can. So, yeah.
Well, as we close out the show, there's usually 2 questions I like to ask all the guests. The first of those questions is, what is your why? So why do you do what you do?
For the community aspect of it. Cigars can lead to great conversations and even better relationships. So never really was about the cigars itself. It was about building a community and finding a place that everybody could hang out and be a family.
I think I think definitely that. But for me, the way that my brain works, I'm a collector by nature. And what this industry has allowed me to do is to channel that collector aspect of myself and be able to create a career where I can have a lot of fun doing what I'm doing, and work really hard and not notice that the two are intertwined. And so I can be a very good tobacconist by just simply channeling this idea that I'm a collector and I like to know things about the things that I have, and being able to tell people about it and stuff like that. So it's very exciting. A good portion of every year is just a very exciting time, because we get to talk about either new stuff or things that we've had for a while and get to be passionate about it, and that it keeps kind of reviving that very, very often.
It's easy to share what you love.
Definitely. The last question is, somebody comes to you two, they obviously see that you all have been in the industry or you kind of own your own business. They want advice on getting started, being an entrepreneur, or launching their own business. What one tip can each of you offer that person who's listening to this or watching and thinking that they have an idea for a business, but they're not sure where to get started? What's your one tip for them to get started?
It's not something that we did, but I'll tell you that after 2020, not related to COVID, my one tip is that if you're going to open a shop like what we do, go to Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic and do a factory tour. See what it really is that you are selling in your store, because it will change how the responsibility that you have to do this well. When you see all the families, all the people, all the time and the effort and the creativity and the beautiful tradition that we as retailers get to be the last step of. If I had to start again, my first thing that I would do before I started looking for a space or I started talking about products is that I would book a trip to Esteli or Donley, Honduras, something, and go see what it really is to do this industry, premium tobacco.
Yeah, mine's the same answer. Like, know what it takes so that you can understand the full process. Know the lives that are being affected by you opening a shop and being able to sell cigars.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, can you tell people what website they need to visit and what Instagram they need to follow or any other social media? Because there's some people who are going to be just listening to this, so they haven't seen the banner that's been up the whole show.
Right.
So can you share that kind of information? And then also, since you have a physical store and presence, can you tell people where your new location is?
Right.
Yeah, so our website's smokersabbyaustin.com. So we have a virtual humidor that has all of our cigars and pipe tobacco. Online also tells our story a little bit about where we are. It kind of connects the four stores together. We have 4 now. And then Instagram is at Smokers Abbey Austin. Same thing for Facebook. It's all the same. We also have a Facebook group that is down at the Abbey. So it's an invite only, but as long as you're in the cigar industry, you like cigars, then we'll let you in. And then our store is in Northwest Austin in Cedar Park. It's about 20 miles west of downtown. So, yeah, our grand reopenings this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So Friday night we have Ovea Negra, our family reunion. They were our first event in our old shop, and so it only felt right to have them be the first event in our new shop. So we'll have all of those cigars, and then Saturday is a all-day party. So we'll have multiple reps and brand owners and all kinds of stuff here, walking people through the humidor and just kind of hanging out.
Well, awesome. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on today. And I want to thank everyone for watching. If you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, just make sure you hit that like or subscribe button. And if you're listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio, just make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave a review, because I always say that there's always room for improvement. You're not going to hurt my feelings if there's something you feel like I can improve on. And also, if you feel like there's something that you liked, also leave that in the comment, because that's always good feedback as well. So we have another show next week with another retailer that's from Texas, Brandon and Dave from Industrial Cigar Company. So it's another Texas retailer, but I'm sure that they'll have a completely different story and experience from you two. So it'll be interesting. I think I might ask them about the ventilation now that you brought it up, to see what they have to say about ventilation. And if you miss any of this show or any of the other episodes, there's over 100 now. So you have plenty to catch up on. You can catch up on all the episodes at deepcutslive.com. So thank you so much. And like I said, another thank you to our guest today for coming on and spending an hour and 3 seconds with us. Very enjoyable. And we'll have to have you back on at some point to talk about some more retail stuff.
Sounds good. Thank
Sounds
you.
great, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.